Good morning, project managers, and congratulations on surviving course one. Well done, very well done. I suppose I could call you all fundamentally project managers now that we've covered the fundamentals of project management. I thought it's a good point to reflect back on course one. And if you remember that far back, we started with some really simple stuff, defining what a project is. And was that so simple? We found that very often we classify ongoing day-to-day activities as projects when they're not really projects. And remember the definitions that we spoke about in terms of a project being unique, having a very defined start and end point. We went on to discuss project success, and we saw that very often far down the track, when the project is long finished, the product is so successful that the project then benefits from that and is also seen to be successful. And the example we used was the Sydney Opera House. So important to take product success and project success, look at them differently, but understand the interaction between them. We then moved on to the origins of projects and how do projects start in your organizations? Do they start with a business case? Do they start with a problem, a need? Are they imposed perhaps from legislation? And what do you do once there is a thought to embark on a project? Project charters we looked at, and then in module 4 we started to introduce the more complex project management institute type terminology, and we looked at project management processes, process groups, and all that vocabulary that just recently we've been discussing on the forums. Pretty confusing stuff. You need to read it often. You need to internalize it for yourself. You really do need to do that, and it becomes more important when we get to course 3, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes' time. We looked at scope, we looked at the work breakdown structure, the product breakdown structure, and the business case, and how those three artifacts interact with each other in order to give us a schedule appropriate for our project. Let me dwell on that a little bit more. You've got your work breakdown structure, which is a hierarchical representation of your work methods, your project work methods. Just picture that in your mind, and alongside it, picture the product breakdown structure, which is a hierarchical representation of the product you're going to build, defining all of its components. Now, when you come to build your schedule, you could take your work methods, and you could take the first method, which is probably planning, and you could do your planning across the entire product. You would then go on to your analysis, and you would do your analysis across the entire product. Alternatively, if there was significant business benefit in delivering an individual component part of your product early, you might do your planning, your analysis, your build, your delivery of a single component upfront first. These are different schedule options, and it's important to take into account that the business case drives this. So there's a most efficient schedule that you could produce without regard for the business case, and that would be looking to achieve economies of scale in the application of your work methods to the product that you are producing and its individual components. The other side of that picture is to say we're not going to produce the most efficient schedule, because although that might contain the project cost, it doesn't maximize the business benefit that we might get from delivering the product component by component and prioritizing those components which give best business value. Now, this is the essence of the usage of the work breakdown structure, the product breakdown structure, and the business case. And this is pretty fundamental to what you are producing by way of a plan. We have many supporting aspects to our plan in addition to the schedule, which are things like a risk management plan, a communication plan, a quality management plan. These are all things that we have to take into account in addition when we compile our project plans. Additional aspects to the plan also include how are we going to report? Are we going to use earned value? Are we going to apply the 50-50 rule? Or are we going to change that somehow to suit our environment? Procurement we spoke about, and I posted a fairly substantial video on procurement. Procurement is critically important. It really can make the difference on your budget, whether you come in on budget or not. Communications really grabbed your attention, and the presentations were fantastic. Really enjoyed them. And communication is a theme that pops up throughout this course, and you'll see quite a lot of your marks are in fact devoted to communication. And then at the end of this course one, we did the wrap-up of execution through to project closure, and many of you started really grappling with trying to get this picture of the fundamentals into your mind. What I would suggest that you do is go back through each of the modules in course one and take out of them the key aspects and build a complete picture in your mind of all the modules in course one and what they mean and what the key issues around those subject areas are. It's very important that you build that picture in an internalization that you own and that relates to what you know and your project environments. The highlights for me during course one have been the interaction amongst yourselves, which started quite slowly, but it's building and building, and I see more and more you commenting on each other's posts, helping each other, asking each other questions. This is very important. This is how we operate in business. This is the way of the future. We have all these collaboration tools. We must use them. And of course, the best way to learn is to start teaching and sharing your understanding of things. There were some superb assignments and some superb student posts on the forums, in particular very recently, and I really enjoyed Neil's post and pointed out to you the way he developed the context of the question and qualified his answer in terms of that context and argued it extremely logically. Another highlight for me has been your move away from complaining about your marks to learning from them. I remember in a normal university environment, you typically get your answer sheet back with a mark on it, and next to the mark you might see good or poor. You don't get much more than that. And this is not school. This is university level stuff. And there's an onus on you as students to understand and figure out why your marks are good and why they're bad. In addition, our tutor team, very carefully selected, provide you with a lot of rich feedback. But there's a limit to how much hand-holding we can do. This is not a tutoring, teaching, learning process. This is a university education level where the onus is on you to learn and figure out what works. You've also had to go through some significant selection to get onto this course, and that would include having demonstrated some academic ability already. Now, our teaching team is, as I mentioned, carefully selected. We all come from different backgrounds. We all give something different, but we have all got a track record and have proved ourselves. The same people that are marking your assignments now are going to mark your final exam. And there's no question in my mind that they're qualified to do that. What's key for you is to realize the difference in the approach that the markers have. We do try and contain that difference, but no matter what we do, there's always going to be differences. This is subjective material that we're studying. So in the real workplace, you've got different managers and they respond differently to your actions as well. This is the same type of thing. You've got to figure out a route where you can satisfy whichever marker gets your work. That's important. And the same is true in life and in management and in the workplace. The other thing that I would say is that on this particular presentation, I think we've given more extensive feedback than we've done in any of the past presentations. It's been substantial. It seems to be sometimes that the more we give, the more the students want. So if I use, if you get one of the more nurturing markers on your work and they give you certain types of pointers, then the next time you might get somebody who is more focused on the fact analysis of your work, and that disappoints you. It shouldn't, because it's all learning opportunities for you. So enough on that. Now, we've set the scene with the fundamentals of project management, and that was really to get us all to catch up with one another, that we're talking the same language. And many of you had this vocabulary that we've developed in the fundamentals of project management. You already had it, so it wasn't so difficult for you. But many of you are still internalizing it and grappling with it. Go through those modules, develop your own thoughts, develop your own questions. And I'm not saying post the questions on the students, but have the right questions in your mind so that as we go further into the detail, those answers will come to you. It is a complete picture, and by the end of the 4 courses, you should have a very complete picture. And if I look at the responses we get from students by the end of course 4, they're just amazed how everything fits together. So don't be disappointed if you haven't got that picture now, but be disappointed in yourselves if you don't understand where your questions are, because then you won't be searching in the right places for the answer. So that's important. The content that we went through in course 1 is going to come alive again for us in course 3. We're going to apply that knowledge in a practical way, where you will take a project that you've been involved with or that you're currently involved with, and you'll produce a project plan for that particular project that you've chosen. Now, the reason I mention this is that at this point, you can start giving some vague thoughts as to what your project might be. It might be a project that you were a team member of a year ago. It might be a project that you were the project manager of. It might be something that you're involved with right now. So we're looking for a fairly substantial project that you can bring to the table, and we will guide you through the development of a project plan, an ideal project plan for that project. That's coming up in about 12 weeks' time. So we've got time to talk about it, to play with it, and closer to the time, I will start reminding you more about it, and we'll create a forum specifically to discuss what your project might be. And the real point of telling you that is, don't forget the fundamentals course 1, which we've just completed, because that content is going to be very, very relevant. Now let's look ahead. Managing people. This is the course that really grabs our students' attention. It's also a special interest area that Derek has, and I think he's done a superb job in putting in collecting from such a wide range of information the essence of what we as project managers need here. We start off with general management competencies. We look at leadership, EQ or emotional intelligence, recruitment, motivation, conflict and stress, and ethics. And in the middle of all that, we look at productivity. And remember, we as project managers, we have tools, we have material resources, and we have people resources. The one where we can make the most difference in terms of